Today, we're diving into the dramatic and often tragic history of Paraguay. It's an incredible story of isolation, ambition, and just catastrophic conflict that has really defined one of South America's most unique nations, even to this day.
You know, to really understand Paraguay, you first have to get a handle on its geography. People often call it an island on land because it's completely landlocked, surrounded by these powerful neighbors. And this physical isolation, it's pretty much the central theme of its entire history, shaping everything from its culture to its most devastating wars.
So here's our game plan. We'll start with its unique colonial beginnings, then move to its wild experiment with some radical dictatorships. After that, we'll cover its near-total destruction in a massive war, the century of instability that followed, and finally, its modern struggle to build a real, lasting democracy.
All right, let's jump right in. So, unlike most Spanish colonies that were obsessed with finding gold and silver, Paraguay was kind of seen as a remote backwater. But here's the thing, that neglect is precisely what allowed it to forge a completely unique path.
Before the Spanish even showed up, the region was home to two really different groups. You had the Guarani to the east of the Paraguay River, who were mostly settled farmers, and then to the west, in the super harsh Gran Chaco, were the Guaycurú peoples. These were nomadic warriors who fiercely, and I mean fiercely, resisted any outsiders. This division is going to be super important later on.
Okay, this is where Paraguay's identity really starts to form, and it's fascinating. So few Spanish men actually made it out there that they ended up widely intermarrying with Guarani women. And their mixed race, or mestizo kids, were given the full legal rights of Spaniards. This created a totally new blended society where the Guarani language actually became an official language. I mean, that was just unheard of anywhere else in colonial Latin America. And then came another totally unique experiment, the Jesuit reducciones. For more than 150 years, the Jesuits created these amazing, self-sufficient communities for the Guarani. Now, the goal was kind of twofold. Yeah, they wanted to convert them to Christianity, but they also wanted to protect them from exploitation and these absolutely brutal slave raids coming from Brazil. This basically created a powerful, autonomous state within a state that was unlike anything else in the Americas.
So after independence, you might expect a liberal republic to pop up, right? Well, not in Paraguay. Instead, it fell under the control of these absolute rulers who first sealed the country off from the rest of the world and then built it into a seriously formidable military power.
The first of these guys was one of history's most severe rulers, José Gaspar Rodríguez de Francia, better known as El Supremo. To protect Paraguay's fragile independence, he brought in this radical policy of absolute isolation. I mean, trade just stopped, foreigners were trapped, and the entire country was forced into total self-sufficiency. This forged a powerful, if a bit paranoid, sense of national identity that would have some pretty explosive consequences down the road.
After Francia died, the Lopez family took over. The father, Carlos Antonio, he completely reversed the isolationist policy. He opened Paraguay up, modernized the economy, and used the state's money to build the biggest and most modern army in all of South America. His son, Francisco Solano, then inherited this war machine and a powerful, centralized state. And let's just say, he had some grand ambitions. And those ambitions? Well, they led directly to the single most catastrophic event in all of Paraguayan history, the War of the Triple Alliance. This conflict was so devastating, it's like a stark dividing line between everything that came before and everything that came after.
You know, that question sounds like an exaggeration, but it's really not. Francisco Solano Lopez's ambition led him into a war not with one neighbor, but with three at the same time: Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay. The odds were, well, they were impossible.
Just look at the mismatch in numbers. It is staggering. Paraguay had fewer than 500,000 people. The alliance they were facing had a combined population of over 11 million. So, despite its well-trained army, the country just could not sustain a long war against odds like that. No way. The result was a demographic catastrophe that's almost without parallel in modern history. It's estimated that Paraguay lost around half of its entire population. Some estimates even claim the loss of adult men was as high as 90%, though that number is debated. The point is, the country was just bled dry.
By 1870, Paraguay was completely shattered. It was under foreign occupation, it was burdened with these massive debts, and it was forced to give up huge chunks of territory. The ambitious state that the Lopez dynasty had built was totally, utterly destroyed.
The devastation from the war created this massive power vacuum,
and that led directly into a century of chaos, political instability, another major war, and eventually one of the longest and most entrenched dictatorships in Latin American history.
After the war, party politics started to emerge, but stability was just a dream. The so-called liberal era, starting in 1904, was just marked by constant coups. At one point, the country went through 15 different presidents in just 18 years. It was a revolving door of power that led to a civil war and, you guessed it, another military takeover.
And right in the middle of all this turmoil, Paraguay gets pulled into another bloody conflict, this time with Bolivia over the Chaco region. And against all odds, Paraguay won, but this victory came at a huge cost. It cemented the military's role as the ultimate power in national politics, paving the way for a return to authoritarian rule.
And that path led straight to General Alfredo Stroessner. He seized power in 1954 and established a dictatorship that would last for 35 years. His regime, called the Stronato, was built on this trilogy of power: the Colorado Party, the government, and the armed forces. It was a system held together by massive corruption and smuggling, all while he was positioning himself as a key anti-communist ally of the U.S. during the Cold War.
Stroessner was finally overthrown in 1989, but not by a popular uprising. It was actually a coup from within his own inner circle. And this event kicked off Paraguay's modern era and its difficult, still ongoing journey toward building a durable democracy.
The modern era has seen some really significant progress. The dictatorship ended in '89, a new democratic constitution came in '92, and in 2008, the country hit a huge milestone with its first peaceful transfer of power to an opposition party. And yet, the path is still pretty rocky. As of 2022, Paraguay is still classified as a hybrid regime, which basically means, democratic elections are held, but the rule of law is weak and the legacies of its authoritarian past are still deeply embedded.
And so, that brings us right back to where we started. Paraguay's history has been this constant struggle between isolation and engagement, between authoritarianism and freedom. Its journey is just a powerful reminder of how geography and conflict can shape a nation for centuries. The real challenge now is whether it can finally overcome that past to build a stable, truly democratic future.
Thanks for joining us for this quick history of Paraguay. If you enjoyed this explainer, you should definitely check out our Quick Country Histories playlist for more. And hey, to make sure you don't miss our next deep dive, go ahead and subscribe to Notebook Summaries. We'll see you next time.